I ditched normal life and turned myself into a World War II German soldier for a brutal 30 hours D-Day Airsoft reenactment with Frontline Events.
Oh, down!
Non-stop marching, blazing heat, night patrols, and chaos. Exactly what I needed to push my limits.
Schneller, move!
If you want to see how stepping way outside your comfort zone can flip your mindset and spark your adrenaline, you are in the right place. Let's go!
Too close! Gap!
I thought I had a good grasp of what to expect from this type of historical airsoft events, as I played with the Frontline events before, so I figure out this would be something already familiar to me, something that I really know, something that I played before. Well, I was wrong. It's turned out I made a massive mistake, kind of mistake that everyone is doing all the time. I had not read the game description in full. What kind of trouble did that lead to? You soon figure out in this video. And even though I had some experience with those events, I always played as a Soviet soldier. So, I mean, I have a Soviet gear, Soviet rifle, Soviet costume, but this time everything was different, because I had only my Soviet kit, and that was a problem, because this D-Day event was Germans versus American, which means I need a completely new uniform, completely new gear, even maybe change my weapon. And of course that meant new expenses to me, but fortunately the internet came to the rescue with the help of Facebook, Marketplace, eBay, Gumtree, Amazon, and of course Frontline Event Discord. I managed to piece everything together. So when costume was done, I was ready. I packed my camping essential, my tent, canopy, chairs, gas stoves, grabbed even my big table from my garden, load everything into my car. Again, I was glad that I own an SUV car, so everything fit in. So I was fully loaded and ready for the weekend adventure. I thought the drive would not take long. I checked on Google Maps. It should be kind of quick trip, but what should have been a quick trip turned into a 2-hour nightmare. Roads were closed, there was detours, of course there was a traffic jam, plus, you know, the usual questionable drivers who must have found their license in a huge surprise, I guess. To the top, the biggest problem was my car air conditioning decided to give up. And that was one of the hottest day of the year. It's kind of perfect timing for me. But none of those, you know, dulled my excitements, the anticipation of what lay ahead. Keep my spirit high, because, you know, sometimes the toughest journey make the destination all the more special. So I was in a really good mood. I even started doing my little silly dances in the car, you know, just to keep the mood up all the time. Arriving at the camp felt like a reunion. Some of the guys I hadn't seen for the months, but it was like no time had passed. It looks like last week we were playing another Frontline event game. Anyway, you know this feeling when you're reuniting with your friends after a long absence. Make these moments together even more special, isn't it? That's exactly what this was, so how I felt. And I knew that coming weekend would create even more memories for us to enjoy together. However, something seemed off. Something was not right, and I understand that I couldn't spot any German side place in there. Soon one of my mates told me what was going on, and he said we were about to engage in a non-stop 30 hours game in a full, authentic World War II setting. Wow, I mean, that definitely wasn't what I had in mind. As I said, I didn't read the rules, but that was a shock for me, because all the camping gear I packed, my tent, canopy, table, everything, technically it was useless. I mean, after spending weeks preparing my German soldier kit, I realized I was not prepared for the World War II soldier style camping for 30 hours straight. and everything need to be kind authentic. Okay, so after a feeble attempt to pitch my Soviet-era tent on stones and stinging nettles, the most terrible piece of land I ever could imagine for my Soviet tent, I just gave up. The only concession, I could use some modern sleeping gear, so my sleeping bag and some stuff, but I've been told I have to keep it hidden, at least during the game. So, because impression must be kind of like authentically in every aspect, from the barn we were sleeping to the camp itself, every little nuances, accessories, details, so we try our best. At the moment my only thought, where would I sleep and what would I eat? But I had everything I need, technically, for the game itself. I had the roof over my head and beer toilets nearby, so, I mean, nearby there were some toilets, it was good, like, by toilets always good. So, what could possibly go wrong? But the real adventure was just beginning. As more participants arrived, our camp slowly transformed into what felt like an authentic, real authentic World War II German base. Gear, weapon, equipment began to accumulate, making the atmosphere immersive as, that we had stepped back in time. Believe me or not, but the feeling inside was exactly that we stepped back in time. And of course, the best part of the Friday evening, yes, socializing. So I wandered out of the German barn and made my way to the American camp, kind of American camp. By the way, guys, from here on, I'll refer the groups as Germans and Americans, just to make it easier to keep track on who is who, without telling the tons of names or describe. He was playing for America, he was playing for Germany. So, Germans and Americans. So, socializing. That was when the excitement hit the peak, because everyone was buzzing, sharing the stories, cracking jokes, and just enjoying kind of calm before the storm. The Americans were camped out of the open field where we parked our cars. Only this night. What's happened in the future I will tell you if you're gonna keep watching. Each person was making the most of the evening, so soaking the atmosphere and camaraderie, and just sometimes I ask myself why, like people so excited, but technically because we all knew what was coming. Because the next day promised 30 hours of intense tactical drilling under the punishing sun, miles of marching, exercises, some kind of trainings, night missions, navigating objects in pitch black, in darkness, during the cold nights, maybe, I don't know. The Americans wouldn't even have the small comfort of like a roof over their heads, like we Germans have. We have a barn. They would be sleeping under the stars, braving the elements and quite possibly crazy, but that's exactly what we were here for. That's why we came, that's why we playing with the Frontline Events. That was not about the comfort, it was about kind of memories, experience, and of course Dan, the Frontline Event team, I would say leader, manager, I don't know. So Dan has created an experience that brought us close as possible to what soldiers felt on D-Day, June 6, 1944. Of course, as I always say, it's absolutely impossible to recreate the feelings and all the terrible things that people went through, but at least we can keep these events as memories with all respect to those people. But for that evening it was all about unwinding, go a bit crazy, have fun, have laugh, and the air was filled with laughter, and we were crazy of sense of anticipation for. It was just crazy because the sense of anticipation of what lay ahead. It was a moment to connect with one another and bond over shared excitement and, as I said, come before we go to this crazy weekend's challenge. Saturday morning arrived, and to my surprise I woke up feeling quite refreshed. My sleeping setup has worked perfectly, my modern sleeping bag. It was warm, and comfortable through all the night. You know, for a brief moment when I wake up in the morning, I felt a pang of sympathy to the Americans, because knowing they would be out in the open under the open sky later that night, because they're gonna just sleep in the field. But maybe, I really hope that adrenaline from the night missions would keep all of us warm enough. So, respect to Americans, to the players who play American side. It was surreal waking up in what felt like an authentic World War II German camp. As soon as I opened eyes, the signs and sounds and people around me wearing German uniform and the entry atmosphere around me, it's made it seems as, again, thought we've been transported back in the time, even for a short while, but the feeling was exactly, it's time travel. Yeah, sure, there were still little modern objects we could not quite hide, but we did our best, to be honest with you. The surroundings too, you know, the place where we were sleeping, this barn, the sounds of the nature, everything make me feel more real back in time. So, our first task of the day was to assemble for a small parade. We marched out to the Newbury field to honor the memory of the soldiers who faced the terrible horrors of 1944, technically. It was like a little respect from our side parade to the people who felt it. For me, this was a very meaningful moment. I won't make it clear right now. Despite wearing German uniform, there were just costumes for me, you know, to enhance the atmosphere of the event. What matters most was that you know, we were stood there as one, reflecting on the past. We being a part of those living history, and this moment gave me a sense of pride, to be honest with you. It was a reminder of the brutality of the war, of the weight of the sacrifices, what was made by so many people, you know, millions of lives. And the only one feeling and thought was that must never be forgotten or repeated. Never ever. Dan's speech was absolutely powerful. It brought us together in unity, reminding us of why we were there, reminding us to be proud of those days and to show massive respect to every single person who felt the terrible of 1944.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. And at the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Praise! Praise!
The parade, combined with his words, I would say, filled with a purpose, you know, it's cemented our camaraderie, uniting us as a team with a shared understanding of the historical significance of what we were about to reenact. Yeah, so it's kind of complicated idea, but we were ready to face for the challenge ahead, you know, with a deeper, more profound connection to the events that shaped the history. So we were ready, and we were looking forward. After that inspiring parade, we returned to our camp with the order to prepare for a full day of training. So, according to the scenario, the game scenario, the American paratroopers would not engage us until 11 p.m., which led us to believe that we had plenty of time, but of course, our commandeers, game organizers had different plans for us. There would be no kind of lounging around the camp, soaking up the atmosphere, chilling out. No, in a true German fashion, everything was scheduled and organized. And of course, guys did the best. Since there wouldn't be any shooting, airsoft shooting, so or use any kind of use of the airsoft replicas. During the training, we didn't need an eye protection. It was confirmed on organization level, so all weapons were checked, there is no BB, they're not loaded, and we were told to wear kind of lighter kit. Even so, the day ahead promised to be quite intense, you know, and interesting. As it turned out, we were about to learn authentic German squad formation, so kind of movements, marching techniques, patrolling strategies, and everything what was used during the World War II. So the idea was to replicate everything exactly as it was done back into 1940s. So what followed, with like hours of training, miles of marching, and drills designed to teach us how to move and fight as a German soldiers once did before. It wasn't easy, but it was interesting. I even say it was amazing, because the opportunity to experience the first-hand why German soldiers used specific formation and to understand the thought process behind their tactics and to see how those formations played out in a battle, it was simply unforgettable experience. Great experience that you cannot get anywhere else. So we spent hours and hours running, ducking, diving, changing positions and working through the various drills. I must say the organizers were incredibly dedicated to using original materials from the World War II to prepare the session. So they used the kind of materials from the real book they found on the internet, because every detail had been carefully researched, and making the training kind of both physically and mentally challenging, but incredibly rewarding, interesting, and just amazing. It wasn't just third for us through, because the American had it just as hard as we had, even no harder. I mean, because Dan, who was leading the American side, packed their schedule with theory sessions and squad formations, showing some slides, detailed breakdown of their kits, and of course hours of tactical movements and battle drills. They were being drilled just as intensive, if even no more than we were. So 2 different camps, 2 different days of drilling, sites of drilling. But so while the sun weather might have suggested a day of barbecues and beers, and like we really dreamed about this, but none of us had the luxury of relaxation. But honestly, I wouldn't have wanted any other way, to be honest with you. That's what I came here for, to get all this experience, and I got it. And again, the atmosphere, the shared sense of purpose, and the camaraderie made every moment worth it. Even sweating and tired, but the experience was unmatched. It's really hard to describe just how intense the emotions were, being surrounded by a group of dedicated people, all driven by the same passion, wear same costumes from same time period. It was something truly special, to be honest with you. The sense of immersion was total, and the feeling of connection and of course proud of everything what we are doing, it just turned me crazy, to be honest with you. And then it comes, yes, walks, or I should say patrol practice, but we walked a lot. The idea was to familiarize ourselves with vast square miles of this stunning landscape. Of course, we needed to learn the lay of the land, fields, forest, and key areas. We need to know the locations, because soon enough we would be moving through it all, even in complete darkness, when we're gonna do our night missions, hunting for Americans paratroopers try to cross the borders. We had to locate critical mission points, like bridges, which would be the hotspot again for the enemies might cross the rivers during the night. And knowing Dan, I wouldn't surprise me if he would ask Americans to attempt a river crossing during one of the night missions, straight away through the water. Why not? It looks like Dan. Our task wasn't just to familiarize ourselves with like landscapes and territory where we are going to play. We had scoured the best positions also for each squad to figure out where to place the machine gun, for example, where to make short camps, get sense of the long and winding roads we would be walking back and front probably for hundreds of times between now and Sunday. And there's something important to remember: the game doesn't stop on Sunday morning, it runs until 5 p.m, which means a full night and day of a non-stop action, marching, patrolling, shooting, being shot at, so etc etc. There was another challenge many of us had to get used to and it was wearing what can only be described as the most uncomfortable uniform you ever can imagine, or that was created by people. So the reproduction of the World War II German uniform, it's a tunic, belt, webbing and shoes. They were not designed with the comfort, I guess. I mean, made of thick wool. They were incredibly hot, especially under the blazing sun. This weekend was just scorchio, and when paired with all the physical activities we were doing, it was easy to see why so many of us were just drenched in sweat, we were sweating. But despite how hard it was, again, there was a sense of deeper meaning in what we were doing. Even step we took was a journey into the past. Every single step, another small step toward the understanding the life of the soldiers who fought in the Second World War. It was in those moments that history felt truly alive around you, and both haunting and beautiful. It was crazy. There's something, surreal about wearing the authentic World War II uniform, the webbing of the wool against your skin, the feeling of the gear strapped tightly on your body, and the rifle in your hands. They heavy, they became very heavy after a couple of hours you holding them, but it was like a portal to another time. It's emotions and experience. You don't just put on a costume, you don't just put yourself on a costume, you became part of that world, of the whole world around you. And the location we were playing, it was stunning. The farmhouses, barns, fields, forests surrounding us, when it was not just a kind of landscapes, no, they became living, breathing elements of the time period we were reenacting. It was crazy and beautiful. It was hard and amazing. As we patrolled, the camaraderie between us grew stronger. We were talking, laughing, joking when we can, of course, when we were allowed by our commanders. But we were not just a group of players, we were a unit. We were kind of bound by a shared respect for the history, idea of this reenactment event, and even the little sacrifice we made, just putting ourselves in those terrible condition situation. There were moments of quiet reflection where the only sound were our boots crunching on the gravel and the distant calls of birds marching together. Crazy. Just in those moments, the line between reality and reenactment just blurred. It wasn't just a game anymore, we were truly living it. The time seemed to like a pause, allowing us to walk in the footsteps of those who was there before. The natural beauty of the landscape was breathtaking. The fields stretched out in a patchwork and green and gold, framed by perfect blue sky, people around you, and those sounds. The air was fresh, and there were moments when we all wanted just to collapse on the grass, gaze up at the sky, and soak in the sound of nature, That's why, by the way, every time when our commander should take a break, guys, drink some water and rest, it felt like a victory, like a little win, because after miles of walking and feeling just exhausted, those words were like music into our ears. We would sit down, drink and recharge for the next challenge, have a little conversations. Who was smoking, they were smoking, maybe have a little snack, and when the break was over, no one complained. No one. Tired people, sweating, tired. I mean, everyone just stood up, gear on, and ready to march again for another couple of miles. After half a day of walking through every type of landscape imaginable, we returned to the camp. We were told to rest finally, grab some food, refill our water, changing into combat gear, and a few guys just collapsed into the nearest patch of shades and fell into the deep sleep. My gut snoring so loudly, I can't imagine, you know. I couldn't blame them. No, they were heroes in my eyes, you know, enduring the heat and the endless miles without a single complaint. It was in this, my god, terrible uniform, you know, they were my heroes. Every single person, every of them. So without wasting the time, I ate, reset it, changed it to the combat kit, all into one go. So I was eating, changing, tried to be relaxed, but didn't really have time, you know. I still have a bit of time left, so I decided, instead of sleeping, I decided to visit the, like, our neighbors Luftwaffe camp, which was part of the German side, by the way, and but this, they had those own objectives. It wasn't far away from our HQ, and I had a feeling that Americans would have missions there too, so have a look for another landscapes, roads, ways where to go. I went there. The Luftwaffe camp was incredible. The guys had put in so much effort to make it look as authentic as possible. It felt like stepping into a piece of living history. I mean, amazing, stunning. I couldn't impress, you know, express my experience. It was crazy. Every little bit, every single bit of the camp, what they did was just stunning. So naturally we also took part in some combat drills, a proper airsoft drills, so we put all our protective gear, and our leaders selected a small bridge over the narrow river to site of our experience. So the mission: take control of the bridge. We divide into two groups, taking turns to attack and defend, each side attempting to secure the crossings technically. So simple drill, but interesting. I have to emphasize one more, the key difference between airsoft reenactment and typical skirmish game. Yeah, so there is a big difference between them. Most of us were armed with a bolt-action rifle, reproductions of the same what once used in the World War II. Only one person in each squad carried a machine gun, so there is no spray and pray. So only machine gun technically compatible to automatic fire, and among the entry group there were only a couple of players designated as snipers, which is the biggest ever win, because if you're playing a game and you have only a couple of snipers, that absolutely changed the game. So there were not thousands of BB filling the air, there is no pray or spray, no chaotic flurry of shots that makes moving forward feel impossible, no. Here every battle unfolded kind of strategically, you know. There were no Lonely Wolves players, of course, because each of us was a part of the squad following our commander's orders, and this is very important because it makes games so organized and strategic that it's absolutely different experience from skirmish. It was all about the coordination, you know. You take a position, you move, you hold the line, and then you cover your teammates, they move, they take a position, then they hold the line, then you move. The machine gun provides suppressive fire if needed, but it's also your job to protect the machine gunner. It was a completely different experience from the typical spray and pray, I used to call them, approach that Sunday skirmishes. And of course, the best part is a roleplay. The dramatic performance when player got hit, it's added the different impression of all the game, because some would collapse to the ground and some people start shouting, screaming, other crawled with kind of cries of sanitator!
Sanitator!
Which is German medic, but you know, they don't just stay raising hand and say medic or hit, no. they actually play like an actors. And another thing is, some just lay there screaming in agony, and I have to admire the level of adrenaline during those drills was intense. Even though this was just a training, but we've been told to act and play the real battle, like we're gonna do this during the game. So, and of course, if someone was shot, the unconscious dead bodies around you, it makes crazy effect. And so yeah, we were training like this, and after each assault or defense we regrouped and analyzed our performance. Our commanders shared valuable feedbacks to help us improve our tactics and make the upcoming game even more engaging. Everyone was fully kind of invested in those debriefs. Even Nathan, our photographer and videographer, even he chimed with some observations, you know, from behind the camera. He saw a lot of stuff, and he had a kind of a unique perspective on the entry event. So, you know, he could catch the details we missed while we were kind of absorbed in the action of drama. With his military background, his advice was spot and very, very good for us to kind of pick up little details. Specific thanks goes to Nathan for capturing some truly stunning footages and photo that perfectly, you know, show the essence of our experience. Nathan, if you're watching this, thank you so much. You're also my hero. So, by the end of the day, around 5 p.m, we were absolutely exhausted. After hours of intense training, we dragged ourselves back to the camp for some, like, much-needed rest. We just need a rest, but we couldn't relax completely because we knew that real action was just around the corner. The Airsoft game was set up begin at 10 p.m. as soon enough, so we find ourselves on a night patrol and hopefully chasing down Americans through the dark forest and fields and all these roads and landscapes. But before that, we had to prepare. Of course, ammunition, kits, clothes, torches, all needed to be ready. And as you might expect, there is no place for the modern technology, so like night vision, thermal imaging and World War II. In our reenactment, we can use only authentic stuff, which is again good, yeah, but what I'm trying to say is the dark will be very dark, night is gonna be very dark. And the coming darkness was only can be brightened by my retro-looking torch I had bought for £20. Quite good investment, by the way, because this is only one thing you can have at the night. But I have to rely on it, and in a pitch black night ahead, that's the only one thing that kind of gonna save me. So we were about to step into different world, into the night reenactment where every shadow could hide an enemy and every bush could signal for us as a danger. It was a great feeling, you know. The anticipation was mixed. It was thrill and fear and excitement and even maybe laziness just to fall into sleeping bag, go sleep. But we were ready. We were ready, whatever come our way, we were ready. Alright, I could not film during the night patrol because it was just a pitch black, so I will use some photos, some crazy images just to show you the story instead. If you only want to see the daylight action, you can skip to the next chapter. There are still a lot of interesting stuff coming, but for now, let's step into the dark. So, as you can understand, my old torch gave me off a weak yellow light, barely enough to keep me from tripping. From the moment we walked into that forest, my nerves were on edge. It was scary, it was even a bit of paranoid, because we were like a German soldiers, you know, guarding the border, but we felt like we were being hunted, and every snapping twig made me jump, every sound, every shadow just make me crazy, absolutely, and a little bit even paranoid, as I said. Every shadow for me, not only shadow, even bush and tree looked like an American hiding in the trees, so it was crazy. We moved into the groups of 3 of us, so I was not alone, but it was for 6 long hours in a pitch dark, and we're trying to watch each other backs, but you know, the night, the dark played tricks on us. It felt like a thriller movie, like a scary movie. I kept my rifle ready all the time, it was loaded, but the funny thing is, I did not fire a single shot all night, not once. So we didn't see a single American soldier. Maybe they were like ghosts, maybe they were not there, but we heard the stories that some captured them somewhere in this massive territory. You know, but the tension is what made it so exciting. Like, sometimes the scariest thing in the wood isn't a real enemy, but what your mind is building in that dark when you're tired, a little bit stressed, scared, paranoid. It's crazy, it's absolutely crazy experience. And when I finally got back to the camp, my adrenaline was still pumping, heart was beating, and you know what? To be honest with you, I felt like I could go right back for another round, for another 4 hours minimum, but I simply knew I need to rest for the next day. So I hanged my gear, I got into my sleeping bag and felt fast asleep. In less than a minute, I'm more than sure it was less than a minute, I was in deep dreams. Waking up that morning was both, it was chaotic and was comical. It was quite funny, okay, but my peaceful dream was interrupted by the shouts, by screams of my German comrades, my German friends. Some people just run into the camp and just like, Achtung, wake up, Americans, Achtung, attention, alarm! And they were shouting and screaming, or something like that, as I remember, because I was sleeping, yeah. It was still kind of struggling to process what's happening, but somehow in 30 seconds, I wake up and I was out of my sleeping bag and I had my webbing on, I had my rifle ready in my hands and ready to, you know, like face the bastards who interrupted my sleep or who break into our camp. Americans, yeah, but no, it was a joke. But it was all joke and a prank played by some of our guys who had they just returned from the early morning patrols and through the forest and fields, and they thought it would be funny to give everyone a proper wake-up call like this. So, well, yeah, it's worked. I was up. After a quick breakfast to refuel, I felt ready to take another day wherever it's gonna bring, or at least ready for another kind of million-mile walk challenge, even for this. But despite the early waking up, it was amazing to see how quickly everyone again geared up and prepared to act like they're not tired, like nothing happened last night and last day. So they are World War II soldiers once again, and it's brilliant. But as much as we look the part, it was clear that some of the guys were kind of very tired. Yeah, they were exhausted, definitely. But, you know, there was still a spark in their eyes, kind of a desire to keep going, keep going. It was the last day of our incredible reenactment, and no one wanted to miss even a minute of it. So, the morning was bright and air crisps, and we all anticipated a day filled with airsoft action, because this day should be all about the airsoft action. So by this point the mission was very clear. So no more hunting for the ghosts in the dark. As game progressed, we were briefed that American paratroopers had landed in our region over the night, so our task was to patrol designated sector and locate them. So at least find some kind of evidence of their presence. The only one problem was the sector we had to cover was massive, so we knew it would be another day of endless walking and patrolling, but this time there was an edge of excitement, because at any moment behind any bush, somewhere in the grass in the field, behind the tree, somewhere hiding on a hill, there could be an American ambush waiting for us. That's why the adrenaline was just boiling in our blood, and knowing that the fight could break out in any second, like during our patrolling. It's feel like like a thrilling game of cat and mouse, but we were all looking forward to some intense airsoft kind of skirmishes through the day. So that should be an action Sunday. The Americans hadn't done their homework, so respect to you guys. Brilliant game during the night, because during the night they'd successfully completed some of the objectives and were not working. Now they were working to finish the rest kind of during the day. So the mission mostly involved kind of sabotage or diversions, setting the traps, blowing things up, and of course taking out as many Germans as possible, which could lead to the really good game. According to the game script, the landing had been discovered. It's mean technically they don't need to hide anymore, and they were prepared for a day of heavy resistance. So random German patrols we're not going to make it easy for them, of course, because this is gonna be a lot of us in small groups kind of everywhere. But everyone knew the Sunday was going to be packed with the tactics, firefights, and of course unforgettable frontline experience in this type of historical milsim battles. So the first half of the day was spent trekking through the miles of just stunning fields, forests, and the areas around the local farmhouses. And again, I could not just find the words to appreciate the beauty of the landscapes with every step we took. The science view of the massive game area were just breathtaking. Massive thanks to the owner of the land and to the Mr. Law, the man who made this historical event possible. Mr. Law once served in the Royal Scots Grey and continues to support events like this in his retirement, and we owe him our deepest thanks for providing such an amazing backdrop for the weekend. Thank you so much, sir. So after hours of searching, we finally made a contact with the American forces, and that's when everything changed completely, because from that on the day was filled with kind of intense battles all the time. So the fighting technically wasn't constant, yes, but it was unpredictable. So we would have kind of still be involved in the heavy skirmishes, fights, and then they were followed by quiet periods again of walking, searching, trekking, but then the action moment kick off again, and we could not relax even for the second. So the combat carried through the day, leaving us physically drained completely, but kind of mentally sharp and focused on holding our position and our spots until the game was over. Around 4 p.m. someone shouted ENDEX, and the signal that the game was over. My first thought was, we did it. The day is done and the game is finished, and we have spent over 36 hours kind of immersed in the unique atmosphere of the World War II, where each of us had fully committed to this intense airsoft milsim experience. It was crazy feeling. The emotions were overwhelming, like we just, completed some kind of massive challenge, and in many ways we actually had, because that wasn't just about the winning or losing, it was about the kind of pushing ourselves, testing our limits, and completing against our own endurance. Believe me when I say it's impossible to fully capture everything that happened during this weekend. Just believe me. It's impossible to fully capture everything that happened during the weekend on a video, on a camera, because even within over the 6 hours of footages and a lot of time spending for script and editing, countless hours in the post-production, and it still wouldn't be enough to cover even, I would say, 20% of the experience I gained. So I share a lot of these videos, but there's so much more that could be said, you know. However, I would leave the final word to the Dan Daves and the man behind Frontline Events.
Again, I want to take you out of your comfort zones in order to bring you all on as people, to grow our community and make it stronger. Okay? And each and every one of you is going to have something in you now that you're going to take away from it and go, oh, I was really good at that, but I can still be better. Or, oh, I was particularly shit at this, but I can still be better. Okay? And like I said, thank you all for digging out blind. Thank you all for coming together as a family and a community and looking after each other. And it's been an amazing experience to do this for you.
Dan is not only army serviceman, but he also one of us, a player. And he's the one who gave us this incredible opportunity to take the part of unforgettable World War II reenactment milsim of a D-Day. Thanks, Dan, and thank you to your team, and thanks to every single person, but thanks, special thanks to Dan. So, as the journey comes to an end, I want to reflect on what we have experienced over the past 36 hours, from setting up camp to patrolling in the dark, from the miles we walked to the intense moments of the battle. This weekend has been more than just reenactment. It was a way to step into the history and connect with the soldiers who lived through the World War II. We have all been tested physically and mentally. Each of us pushed ourselves, learned on a squad, and experienced something truly special. Whether it was the rush of combat drills or maybe quite paranoia of a night patrol, every moment brought us closer to the understanding the sacrifices of the past. That wasn't just a game, it was about kind of honoring history, building connections, and learning about ourselves along the way. Now I've decided countless hours to bring this story live to you, and if you have find it meaningful, I'd truly appreciate your support. Give the video a like, leave a comment, or subscribe to the channel. Your engagement helped me keep creating stories like that, and of course, this is not the last Frontline event game. I would like to keep the history alive through these videos. And of course, if you are interested in joining us at Frontline Events, check the description of that video for all the details. Don't worry if you new, just reach out, contact us, and we'll make sure you are the part of the family and you are going to be part of our next experience. The experience you will never forget. Thank you for following me on this journey, and special thanks to Dan Daves and his comment. Massive thanks to Mr. Lowe for the landscape and all this brilliant area provided. Special thanks to the Frontline Events team who creating a weekend none of us will forget, and a special thanks to every single person supported me through this 36 hours. This wasn't just a game, it was a living connection to the history. Until the next time, guys, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.